Hello YouTube. In this hypertrophy series, we are talking tonnage distribution. I've spoken about the quality of tonnage, junk volume, and basically what would constitute high quality tonnage. Now let's talk about the way it disperses within the body. Because not every lift is going to produce the same amount of tonnage, of course, but certain movement patterns are going to direct that tonnage in a smaller portion of your body, and some are going to spread it all around the place. For example, a deadlift is really going to diffuse the tonnage. A lateral raise is going to target certain muscles. So if you try and see the human body in your head, try and picture this as a ray wave, like as a sort of spread, meaning that when you picture someone doing deadlifts, you should see the entirety of the back being bright red, right? Posterior chain, lower back, and then certain areas are going to be less colored, but they're still going to be involved. The grip, the upper traps, muscles of the neck, even the calves to an extent, the core, of course, all of that is going to be a good indication of where the tonnage goes. And this is absolutely primordial for your programming abilities. Why? Because when you do a lift and you program it with the reps and the sets and everything, you need to know, of course, how much tonnage it produces, but also the muscles that are going to be worked, because that's how you construct a program that is going to be beneficial for hypertrophy across the board. Of course, unless you have certain muscles that you absolutely do not want to hit, but even in that case, knowing that they're not going to be hit comes from that knowledge. And this is a pretty basic thing to say, right? It's a pretty basic principle. That being said, it goes beyond that, because there are certain lifts that people don't realize are going to represent one or the other type of tonnage. And it comes from ignorance, of course, for people who are new, but it also comes from dogma, because people fail to realize that certain lifts are not as beneficial as they think, or they're more beneficial than they think. For example, when you do a deadlift, to me, the target tonnage is going to go mostly into your hammies, glutes, and lower back. The diffuse tonnage is going to go into the upper back area, right? Meaning what? Meaning that you cannot let the deadlift be your only upper back builder, or you will end up with a bad upper back. And it's mostly true for the traps. I think the reason why people say that the traps are an enhanced muscle and that you can only build them if you're non-natural is because they rely on the deadlift too much. Yeah, you might be pulling 400 pounds from the ground and your traps are holding those 400 pounds, but how much does that really represent for a muscle like the trap, especially when you consider that when you do it with a deadlift, it's just a weighted stretch. Your traps can hold much more than 400 pounds. Meaning that the tonnage they require to really grow is more than what your posterior chain can move through a full range of motion. That needs its own video to be explained, right? Because it's a concept that some people just cannot grasp in their head. And that is why, when you think about it, you need to apply it in your head in terms of target and diffuse tonnage, because every single lift is going to be that. And I firmly believe that within a program, you should have, of course, compound movements that are going to diffuse the tonnage around the body, because it's going to save you some time, it's going to serve as pre-fatigue, it's going to warm everything up, but you cannot do without isolation movements. Why? Isolation movements are usually going to be like special agents that are going to not really have much diffuse tonnage at all, but they're going to have a tremendous amount of target tonnage. And it's going to be very easy to know which muscle group and body part is being targeted. Programs that have one and not the other are bad programs, at least for hypertrophy. If you only do compound movements, yeah, you're going a lot of tonnage, but you don't really know where it's going. And when you do know where it's going, you realize that it's most of the time in the same body parts, and other body parts are being completely ignored. This is why people who say, oh, you only need the big three, that's a lie. You're going to have a terrible body. You're not going to be aesthetic. On the other hand, bros who only do curls, who only do triceps, who only do isolations and say, oh, Heavy lifts are dangerous, don't do compounds. They are also missing out. This is the reason why they stay small and weak forever. It's because they're missing that massive amount of tonnage that strength work is going to get. They're missing on the benefits that it provides because it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger overall, so you get stronger on the isolation stuff as well, and it saves you a lot of time. You will never be able to catch up to someone in terms of tonnage if you only do isolation movements and they do compounds. They're going to skyrocket right past you. And size and hypertrophy is promoted by tonnage. Overall tonnage. So that's what you need to keep in mind. You need both, and every single lift is going to provide both, but they're going to provide it in different ranges. And if you want a complete physique, you need to go through the list of body parts, and as you create your exercise selection, you need to make sure that you have every single body part covered, and then next to the lift that you're going to include in your program, you need to also include the diffuse tonnage is going to give you. Why? It's important for recovery, right? See, that's also the flip side of it. Don't focus too much on where the tonnage is mainly going to go, because since you do so many lifts, for the most part, you're still going to have a lot of diffuse tonnage, and you need to know where it goes, because ignoring that can lead to overuse injuries. For example, people who program squats and deadlifts and they don't pay attention to the synergistic use of the lower back. That's where injuries occur. You use the same lower back for both lifts, so you need to take that into account. And the same will be basically repeated throughout the program with tendons. Your tendons can wear out. Even if you don't use the same muscle, it can recruit the same joint in the same angles and over time be a problem. So that is something within the greater scheme of tonnage that needs to be understood and kept in mind. I hope this was informative. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.